Hello Uganda, welcome to the show On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. Now, as Uganda heads towards the 2026 general elections, the NRM finds itself at a critical crossroad. Questions loom over political pluralism within the party, this coming after the sweeping exit of long-serving SEC members. This exit has sparked a debate over whether we are witnessing a genuine generational shift or simply the consolidation of power among loyalists. Allegations of bribery and intimidation alongside questions of internal cohesion further complicate the picture. And with NRM preparing to unveil its 2026 manifesto, attention turns to what priorities will define the next phase of the ruling party's agenda. Welcome to On the Spot. My guest this evening on this show tonight is Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Byarhanga. Thank you so much for joining us, Moses. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Patrick, and our viewers out there.
I want to thank you for having honored our invitation to be here tonight. And you have just, as NRM had the Delegates Conference, they have just elected members of the Central Executive Committee. I've been looking through the members of the committee, Moses. What a sweeping victory of the young Turks taking on the old guard. Is this some kind of renewal of the party, or maybe the voters in NRM are tired of the old guard?
Well, see, first of all, I'm happy to be here. I think I don't know when I was last on NTV.
I don't recall either, Moses.
But it's not my first time.
Yes.
Yeah, many times before. In regard to your question, well, in a democracy, as long as you have regular elections, the people speak. You are talking about SEC, but if you look at Parliament itself, I think in every parliamentary election, the new members of Parliament are more than the old ones.
That seems to have been the pattern, but this is not the first time we're having election of the Central Executive Committee members. Moses, this time around, there was some kind of a political tsunami that came targeting only the old guard. It's a political hurricane that we haven't seen before. And I just want, because you are senior in the party and a senior presidential advisor, what explains that Mukula is gone, Jim Muhwezi is gone, Mario Mons is gone, and all these guys that we know, Rebecca Kadaga is gone, and you have people not of high name recognition, not members who are historical, but young Turks. Is this the transition Ugandans have been talking about? Is it beginning?
Partly, yes, but also, see, if you know the history of NRM, it has always welcomed new members. Just even we're doing the Bush, if you look at NRM from 81 and even before, if you look at that history, it has always been characterized by new young people coming on board and taking over leadership positions.
I'm not denying the fact that there can always be renewal of the party to rejuvenate it, but the scale and speed upon which we saw this happen is not like anything before. Like you sweep an entire group, especially the SEC members, and you just have something completely new. Moses, is that something that has been planned by people like you? And
you know, you see, when we started the multi-party kind of election, these elections in, I think, 2005, 2006, so the first national conference of this nature was in 2005. That's just 20 years ago. And the SEC members who have been in the last, you remember last time we had COVID in 2021. So although we had the elections, they were
virtual,
controlled in such a way that we didn't have like a conference like all people coming together, converging like we have had at Kololo, ending today. So it was virtual. So you can say the members who have been there, not all of them have been there for 20 years, because we have had these multi-party elections for 20 years today. So the first people who served the first 10 years are not the ones who have been, none of them were there from 2005. Most of them came in after.
I don't know. Some of these senior members of the NRM, we have known them, I suppose, for quite some time. High name recognition, generals in the military. For example, people like General Tumukunde and General Museveni, you know, because that business of standing behind people's backs and support them, it can either embarrass you or give you, embolden you. The images we saw, I don't know whether you saw it, of Major General Jim Museveni, you know, fighting for the position, I think, of the Veterans League with a retired lieutenant, and just a very few people behind. I'm like, okay, what are the delegates trying to communicate?
Well, there were not so few per se, but well, that's election. It's an election. People make a choice. General Jim Museveni has served SEC for a long time. He's still serving in terms of as a political leader. He's a member of parliament. He is a flag bearer for his constituency. He's a minister. So while he's not now going to be serving in SEC, he has other roles to play.
Okay, now let's dig in, Moses, because I just want to bring in what I've heard as the voices of the people who were in that race, including Captain Mike Mukula. I've even read a statement of retired Major General Jim Museveni, I think it was in the New Vision. I've also seen a statement from Mr. Moses Karangwa Kalisa. All these, and I've also heard from the Honorable, I've had people quoting the Honorable Christopher Yomunsi. All these people who are running for the vice chairperson in different regions and have lost, and are senior members of the party. None of them think that this election was held in a free and fair manner. And Moses, that's a stain on the party that you support. Well,
they have had some of the incidents being raised, but fair on the whole. You see, what is being most people try to challenge is the lining up. But let's see, within the constitution of the party, it's not something just imposed. So there are issues to do with the college elections. But at the end of the day, when people speak out, we should definitely be on the alert to avoid wrongdoing within the election process. And that's why if there are anybody with evidence of wrongdoing, the system, the political system within the party has ways of addressing it through a tribunal. So anybody who has evidence of electoral malpractices, they are free to contest it in the tribunal. Like today, during the closure, the president and the chairman mentioned that for the youth league election, it's going to be handled by the tribunal, and when the tribunal makes its ruling, it will be made known to everybody.
So, okay, I know you're making reference to the tribunal, and if we take you back to the primaries, Moses, the primaries also were marred by violence in some cases, allegations of bribery, breaches of intimidation, and it's evidenced by the number of petitions that came to the tribunal, almost 600 plus. And now this SEC, or this Delegates Conference, is also going to produce petition that will go to the tribunal. Every time you're going to have an internal electoral process that is going to have to be characterized with violence and chaos and allegations of bribery, is NRM incapable of organizing an electoral process that is free and fair?
You see, when any election, whether NRM or not NRM being conducted, the other institutions of the state have a role to play. For instance, the police. If there's violence is not is that the work of the police. If people are violent, if there is a beating of anybody, the police should do its work. And I'll be reading the papers. Some of the people who are involved in the actions or inactions during the primaries have been arrested, and they are before the courts of law. Some were dismissed. Administrative action was taken against them. So, of course, the election, like NRM, because it's a popular party, many people do believe, and it's true, that when you win the primaries or in NRM, in many of the cases, you become automatic MP. That's why people struggle so much to win the flag, unlike in other parties.
Well, also depends where, in which part of Uganda.
I said in most parts of Uganda, mark my words. So, but where there is malpractices, that's work of the police. So, and you remember the president has mentioned it, that the police should do their work, irrespective of who is involved. So, but I don't know if it was, maybe they were overstretched, I don't know. I don't want to speak for the police. But in any future kind of election of this nature, the police should be on the alert, because at the end of the day, the police is supposed to be policing all the time, whether it is election process or not. So if somebody engages in violence just in a home, forget about being election time, the security system, through the LOCs, through the intelligence and the police are supposed to do their work and make sure that they bring the culprits to book. So it doesn't matter whether it is an election or not. So if anybody engages in violence or cheating or whatever malpractices, the police should do their work and make sure they are arrested.
So what do you make of the fact that senior members of the party who were in the race for positions in the Central Executive Committee of the party and have lost are raising a red flag about the party, talking about bravery, talking about, technical challenges that were so evident, talking about almost saying that the system was shambolic. And what do you make of these? Are these just bad losers?
Well, I don't want to speak for them, but what I observed, on the whole, I said, yes, the election process was good. There were some areas where we could improve upon, especially, you see, a village election where people are lining up, and the election taking place at the same time. You see, in the national election, the voting is from 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock to about 4 o'clock.
Yes.
But here, people must gather at the same time, and then voting takes place. Now, if you come late, you may not be able to vote. So the question is, are all your voters been able to come and vote? Now, there were some challenges and allegations that people on the registers were not good enough. They're going to be, and this is a better improvement than last time, you remember. So if it's a question of making sure the register is clean enough, even at a national level, people, when they say there's a time for voter display, people don't go to check their names. This instance, there was voter display by the National Electoral Commission. I don't know if Kamara or you yourself checked if your name is on the register.
I need to go to Ngezi in my village and find out.
But the time is over. So
I will walk there because I'm determined to vote.
But what if you go on election day and you find you're there?
Well, but I'll have to go.
So those are some of the challenges. Some people say I'm not on the register or the register was inflated, but there was time to display the register. You as an interested party, did you check to ensure, do you have a team to help you say, oh, on this village, who are the voters registered? During the time of display, did you check whether all your voters or none, or to ensure that none of the people who stay in the village are on that register?
So talking about the possibility of somebody being on the register or not, just before we came on air, I was having a conversation on phone with the gentleman who was also running for the Central Executive position for Kampala, Mr. Singh Katongole. And Singh Katongole says that over 200 goons were given access to the Kololo venue, and they lined up into the lines and participated in this thing. And he's a senior member. He's on record. I talked to him. At least it's not a hearsay. He says 200 goons were allowed into the Kololo venue, and they participated in the voting process.
I've talked to Katongole myself. Katongole, I know him well. He's my OB.
Okay.
We completed the PLOE together, P7, in the same school. if he has that evidence, if you say, and with numbers, that's good cause for petition. So I welcome his petition should be welcome.
Well, he's not petitioning. That's another thing.
Oh, that's another matter. Then that's unfortunate. But still, he can.
He's one of those who have graciously decided to accept this for the fate.
No, he can still make it known to the party leadership, since he's an interested party. Well, after all, Katongole is a flag bearer for Rubaga North for Parliament.
Yes.
So he's still a party leader. Notwithstanding that you lost his membership to SEC. He's still a senior member of the party, and he can raise that matter at an appropriate time, and it can be investigated. How would any person, other than those accredited to attend the function, how did they come to attend?
At a press conference this evening that was called by Mr. Moses Karangwa Kalisa, who was also running to represent, I think, the Central Region at SEC, and I saw it being addressed by probably his lawyer, Justin Namere, spitting fire about the exercise, you know, how shambolic it was, and they are saying for them they actually won. They put the whole blame on the chairman of the Electoral Commission of the party. Moses, if these things were being done in our villages, we could understand. But when you gather in Kololo, that's the creme de la creme of the NRM Party. We expect better from such a group of people.
Sure, but also, that's what I'm saying, if somebody has any evidence that what was done shouldn't have been done, that's a good cause for appeal. And I would encourage Mr. Karangwa, if he has that evidence, let him go and appeal, and we wait for the outcome of the appeal. You see, there's no imposition of a candidate on you. So if he has evidence of malpractices, one or two or more, then let him petition, and his petition will be heard, and the verdict will be given. That's how good it can be.
Why is it that, correct me if I'm wrong, that these candidates, these contenders were not given time, 10 or 5 minutes or whatever, to directly engage on a podium or the voters, the delegates, some sort of introduce themselves and give their views? People came from the village and then they started voting. There's no address by the candidates to the delegates. Is that right?
No, at least for the first, second vice national chairperson for female, the one which was between Right Honorable Anita Among and Right Honorable Kadaga, they talked, they campaigned, they talked. There was two. Then in SEC, all of them talked. All the candidates presented themselves. In NEC, they all presented themselves. But at Kololo, because of time, I think that's why maybe they were not given a lot of time to speak. But the campaign had been going on, really. That's not
because I remember. I think the chairman was quoted as saying that people should not campaign before time or something like that.
When? No. Yesterday, I think when they announced the first candidates, that is the Right Honorable Anita Mongan and the Right Honorable Kadaga, some people were carrying placards around. They said, no, this is not a campaign area for that purpose. It's like in the national election, there are 2 days to the voting. There's no campaigning, open campaigning. But the people to talk would have talked. So the two, don't confuse the two. The chairman said this is a campaign ground now. It's a final. We don't need people not going around with placards, but the candidates can speak. Okay,
Mr. Moses Byarhanga, Senior Presidential Advisor, hold on to your point because you're going to take a break on the spot. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guest tonight is Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Byarhanga. Mr. Byarhanga, well, the Delegates Conference endorsed President Yoweri Museveni to be the flag bearer. That means he's going to run again, 2026 to 2031. He's going to be your candidate. By the time we go to the polls, General Museveni would have been probably president of the country for almost 40 years.
Yes.
So did you envision, you as members of the NRM, that General Yoweri Museveni, when he came in 1986, that 40 years later he would still be offering himself for leadership of the country?
Well, I don't know why. You see, revolutionary parties, their plan is always long term, not 2, 3, 4 years and go away. Otherwise, why would somebody go to fight to liberate a country?
To put systems,
division,
to have renewal of different leadership of people, to have young people also come in and build the capacity of leaders.
You see, this question you're raising, you see, in Japan is a highly developed country and rich country, a democratic country. After the Second World War, I think the Liberal Party was in power for 50 years, unchanged. So you're talking about 40 years here. So
40 years of an institution, I'm not talking about 40 years of an individual. Those are two different things, Mr. Yarang.
It was the same party, it was the same policy position.
Yeah, but different individuals, when they come, there's a certain dynamism they bring, there's some kind of renewal that happens.
That's determined by the party itself. You see, for instance, when you talk about term limits, that's what you're leading to. That's where you're leading to. Recently, in Germany, the lady chancellor was there for 4 terms. What's wrong with that? In America, and in Europe, I don't know of a country in Europe which has term limits. I don't know of any. You can teach me that history if there is one. In America, where there are term limits, even when they were introduced, I think President Roosevelt, they have had 2 presidents called Roosevelt. One of the Roosevelt presidents had been in power for 4 terms. So the idea was more of how do we prevent this person from becoming elected again? Not about his ideas, but the person.
So when
it was introduced, America, in the original constitution, they didn't have term limits. He only came in later, and against the person who had been there for 4 consecutive terms, winning all of them. So at the end of the day, it's the people's choice what matters, not how you have said you be there for only this time, then after that you can go and another person comes. It's not a show, it's not a drama.
Well, President Yoweri Museveni has incredibly been a good leader. That's for sure. I think he has been. But really, if you just have this one individual, yes, good as he may be, yes, he is, and around him you do not see the number 2 and number 3, or even anybody trying to say, okay, let me also offer myself, isn't that suicidal for the country?
It's not. The others who come within the other parties and they lose. Have you heard that he has been unopposed in the national elections?
This time there was not even a Ruhinda Maguru.
No.
This time there was not even a Captain Ruhinda Maguru.
Have you heard he has not been opposed in the national elections?
I'm sure, talking in the party.
I'm sure when we get nominated on 23rd.
There used to be a Felix Okoto Gwang. There used to be a Captain Ruhinda Maguru. This time around, not anybody.
Yes,
what explains that, really?
Well, people have confidence in him. We have confidence.
They are not intimidated?
No, we have confidence in him. He's very knowledgeable. He's a good leader. I've worked with him closely for a long time. And I can assure you, in terms of ideological position for Uganda, for East Africa, for Africa, you can't have a better person than him.
Now that you are convinced that he could be the better person for Uganda, and I know as a party, I'm sure you're putting together a manifesto. If you can just give us a sneak peek of what the manifesto is likely to be. What kind of contract are you likely to sign with the people of Uganda?
Well, like many other manifestos we have had, first of all, we always first narrate the achievements over the past 5 years, but also talk about our history as NRM, if you look, for instance, look at the road sector in Uganda. When NRM came to power, only 1,000 kilometers of roads in Uganda were tarmac. And those 1,000 kilometers, many of them were in poor shape. I remember like a road from Kampala to Mbarara, it would take 7 hours, but it was called tarmac road. The road to Kampala to Gulu, similarly in a bad situation. But today we are talking of that first rehabilitated all the 1,000 kilometers of roads. And today we are talking of 6,300 kilometers of roads, basically new roads. And the roads under construction, as we talk, are about 1,300 kilometers already under construction. So in a short time, maybe in a year or so, you'll be talking of about almost close to 8,000 kilometers of roads in Uganda, having started from 1,000 poor roads.
Which are tarmac.
Poor roads.
Yes.
So many years ago.
So 8,000 kilometers of roads maybe that are paved, then how much of those roads that are just Maram?
The Marams are much more.
Yeah, because you could be talking about a smaller fraction of the entire road network.
Yeah, but
and they think that is...
But today, if you look at Uganda, if you take off from Kampala, you'll almost reach almost all the district headquarters on a tarmac road. Almost.
Well, me who comes from Kenjojo, you'll struggle to move from Mitiana to Mubende.
That's under construction.
It is not, even the graders have left.
It's under construction. In fact, it's only a difference between Mubende and between Mitiana and Mubende. The distance is about 86 kilometers, which is in the poor shape. But at least me who come from part of that area, I know if you left Kampala many years ago, tarmac stopped at Busunju, and from Busunju up to Hoima there was no tarmac. From Hoima up to Kakadi there was no tarmac. From Kakadi to Kenjojo there was no tarmac. From Kenjojo to Mosfotpoto there was no tarmac. But now all the other side is tarmac. You know, so if I miss the Kenjojo bit, the Mitiana, Kenya, but I can use other
so you're telling us the people of Fotpoto should be passing via Moses, that's your idea?
I'm not saying
that we should be passing via Hoima?
I'm not saying so, but I'm showing you that the majority of other areas are tarmacked. If you look at the Acholi area, for instance.
I don't know when you were last in Ishaka Bushenyi road from Mbarara, which is very pathetic.
That's an old road which is also due for rehabilitation. But if you look at, for instance, most of Acholi area now, most of the big roads are tarmac, from Gulu to Atiak, and Nimule. Now from Atiak up to the Nile and cross over to Ajumani. Now they are doing from Masindi Port to Apache, from Apache to Lira, and it continues up to Kitigum. In the Bunyoro area, because of the oil discovery, almost the road like from Masindi to Bulisa is tarmac, from Bulisa to Foima is tarmac, Foima Kaisotonia is tarmac. I've already told you.
Well, if NRM had a way of extracting oil without using roads, probably would have gotten your oil and leave the roads. But you have been, because of the natural resources in Hoima, so you're pushed to build the roads there. I
was giving that example that our manifesto is looking at our history and, of course, the plan for the new roads in the road sector. So we are showing you what we have so far accomplished, and the new roads are going to be tarmacked. In the water sector, for instance, the same. We are showing today Uganda, almost 85% of the villages in Uganda each has a water source, it has never been like that before. Immunization, we are talking about 100% immunization coverage. Today, the child who is not immunized in Uganda is that child whose parents have not taken them for immunization. But in the past, it used to be only 30% of the children will be immunized. And then that led to a high infant mortality rate. Today, it's the lowest ever. It led to also a high maternal mortality rate was high. Today, it is the lowest ever. It's now, I think, around 260 mothers per every 100,000. It used to be about 600 mothers per every 100,000 births. So our socioeconomic programs, education, look at education today, in terms of access to education. In terms of, I was looking at figures today. By the time we started the UPE, we had about 6,000 schools in Uganda, primary schools in Uganda, government. Today we're talking about to double the number, 100%. We're talking about 12,000.
But the issue, Moses, whereas universal primary education
we're not talking about 12,000 new schools having risen from 6,000 just in 1997.
Yeah, but if you also look critically, you have almost 1.8 million children who enroll in under UPE and other private school arrangements in primary one. But the people who sit, the children who sit for PLE are less than half of that number, Moses. So the question is, where are they? Where do they go? You should be bothered to know, where do they go?
You know, part of the challenge I see has been
the completion rate of only PLE primarily is very poor.
Let me explain to you. Part of the challenge has been when you hear people saying that they say there are 2 million children in say P1, and then you monitor that as they reach P7. Because of the capitation grant is calculated per child, which the little money which goes to schools for some of the activities is calculated per child. Some of the schools inflate it. Now the Ministry of Education, and credit goes to them, has introduced a new a digital system of identifying children. And this digital system, the child they take their pictures, their fingerprints, they take their parents' NIN numbers, and so far, I was the other day talking to people in the Ministry of Education, they have discovered there were a lot of ghost pupils also, so a lot of corruption.
But you see, Moses,
listen.
1.8 million children to be recorded as having enrolled in P1. That is endorsed by district education officers. That is endorsed by inspectors of schools. Unless you tell me the inspectors of schools are not there. And how do you start having ghosts?
You see, that's the other day.
Where's the inspectorate division of the Ministry of Education?
You see, primary education is a decentralized service, if you know. So government, I was the other day looking at the figures, and I remember discussing them with the president recently, that there is money which goes for inspection to the inspector of schools, about 380,000, and another about 300,000 to the DEO. So for each primary school, government is spending about 680,000 for inspection per year per primary school. This money is shared out for inspection between the district inspector of schools and the DEO. Now, this is a centralized service. So for those chairmen LC5, for the cows who are listening or watching this program, please, we have been sending money, and we are still sending money for inspection per school, almost 700,000 per school per year. And all these malpractices are being seen. Some of the money is diverted at the district level.
Yeah, but you see, so you're talking about corruption or something like that.
At the district level. So the district councils, the people who are elected by the people, who are, because if you are elected, you are going to serve your people. Now, either you don't know your role, because if you know your role, why should this money for inspection come and you don't follow up as the political leaders? That's one. Two, why should the leaders of the schools inflate the number of children? But now, notwithstanding that we have confidence in those leaderships, the digital system, you can't easily beat it. I got information the other day from the Ministry of Education showing that there were some cases, I think about 4 schools they sent to us, where I could see that before they introduced the digital system, the school had like 1,000 children, reportedly. Now, when they introduced the digital system, there are about 600. Then you said, where are the 400? Where did they go? So that was now, if you are using what you call school completion rate with those inflated children, it will give you a wrong figure.
Well,
now with the digitalization, you're going to get more accurate figures.
But you see, you're talking about issues of corruption,
yes,
issues of lack of integrity and management that is not proper. Again, there is a government in power that is, responsible for making things right.
Yeah.
So for a long time, if money has been lost for a long time, this is where you have failed.
Well, at this point we have seen that there is a problem and introduced the digital system. So I must credit the people, the head of the Ministry of Education, the First Lady, Mrs. Janet Museveni, that her team now has realized, because see, you're dealing with human beings. As you're planning this, you're planning the other. So that's why, even in the developed systems, when you see some levels of integrity, some cases of no corruption, is because of the digitalization of their systems. Now, not only has the Ministry of Education introduced that they call it EMAIS, they have also introduced the one for checking on the teachers' attendance of schools. Because since they call it Teller, there's a name to that effect. So as we digitalize further, check like getting a driving permit. It used to be a very long process and tedious. Check with getting
the passport.
Passport.
Yeah.
Now you can at this time of night you can fill an application online, pay online, get an appointment, and you just go to the Ministry of Internal Affairs for your fingerprints to be taken, and then you are told when to get your passport. So as you improve on the systems, you also do much better. So in general, our manifesto is looking at what we have achieved and the plans ahead.
You know, still a little bit in the Ministry of Education there. I've always wondered, why, Moses, is it that sometimes we parents are forced to pay even a lot more in a government-aided secondary school than a purely private? If you go to all these, the King's College Budos, the Indiges, and whatever, you'll find that you're paying much more than in some cases a purely private school, and yet these schools have government support.
That's true. That's true. That's a challenge which you have to address. But see, when we introduced both UPE and later USE, our big target was access, and said that's why the USE schools are not the boarding, they are day schools. And our target is that every sub-county to have a government secondary school, either directly constructed by the government, and we have constructed about, I think, 200 or something schools have been constructed in this just 5 years. We are going to do a more rehabilitation of the old schools. So in these USE schools, they are supposed to be affordable, free education. We have been having a challenge in both USE and UPE, where parents, through PTAs and the head teachers, charge some fees, and they claim some of the fees that they have to pay for teachers who are not on the payroll. But in our manifesto, we are going to address this to ensure that there are enough teachers at all the time, so that excuse that we are paying teachers who are not on the payroll it should not be raised by anybody, because we shall have enough teachers.
I want you to understand the real pain of Ugandans in the area of the health sector. Because today, Moses, God forbid if you fall sick or your loved one falls sick and you are admitted in any of the hospitals in Kampala for just a week. If you have land, you'll go back in the village and sell it. Must it be like this? Because why do we find exorbitant medical bills that people cannot afford to pay? People, Moses, have decided to go back in the villages and sit and die because they can't afford. And yet as a government, they pay taxes. Can there be a system where people can be helped, at least access medical care? Because if they're paying on their own, it is incredibly difficult.
Patrick, access to medical care today in Uganda is much better than any time before. Because you see, our policy as NRM is to have a health center 3. Health center 3 is basically a small mini hospital where they can treat you for malaria. Because the most common disease in Uganda, I think 40% of the people who go to health centers in Uganda are malaria cases. That's 4 out of 10. So our basic health unit, we have health center 2s, but we have been phasing them out for health center 3s, which have a medical officer with a laboratory, with drugs and so forth. Still, the challenge goes back to our local government system, our government leadership. So we elect leaders at sub-county, at a district, who are in charge of the local governments. The health center 3s, the health center 4s are below the district leadership. But Moses, I'm wondering how you want to blame these people in the districts, because there's a leadership in Kampala. We have a president, we have a cabinet, we have members of parliament. If systems are not, you crack the whip. No, Patrick, you see, because we have shared responsibilities and shared powers, that's why I am telling you this. The people in the Kenya, where you come from, elect the LCC chairperson. That LCC chairperson, if he knew his role, he would be doing wonders, because the Health Center 3 is just next door to the sub-county headquarters. Probably if there is a secondary school, a UP school, is also within the same neighborhood. And then when you hear poor service delivery, what is this person doing? When you hear sales of drugs, yes, we are trying to digitalize the system of drugs management to avoid the leakages, like we are trying to do in the education side. But at the end of the day, but even before that, you are the LCC chairperson, you are the councillor, what are you doing? But to answer your question earlier, is yes, we have brought health services nearer the people, and but when there is stealing of drugs, that's where the most part of the challenge. In some cases, the drugs are not. In some cases, the drugs are also not there, Moses. A few years back, just a few years back, I was at a general hospital. I don't know whether it's regional or general hospital, Masindi, no, in Kiriandongo Hospital, and I could see, people who are maybe taking care of the patients, lining up with their jerrycans to get water on this single borehole. Like about 100 jerrycans. And then water that is supposed to be within the hospital at that time, it was not there. And I'm wondering, a hospital with all these infectious materials around, and there's no running water, and people are just lining up on this one borehole. Well, thank God the hospital had been built in the 60s. I think Kiriandongo Hospital, if I remember. The situation sometimes is gut-wrenching. Patrick, you see, sometimes it's a leadership issue, but I wanted to answer you. You see, if you look at the medical services in Uganda today, yes, there are challenges you raised of the medical bills, but in general, if you look at the country in general, there are better medical services today than ever before. In terms of reach, in terms of access.
Moses.
Listen to me. You see, you're talking about drugs, non-existence of drugs in some of the health centers. A health center, for instance, which is supposed to be at a hospital with a doctor, at least a surgeon, or a physician, for that matter, gets drugs worth 250 million shillings a year. The government puts a budget over the drugs at the national medical stores. The health center leadership for the health center 4 and above, they apply to the medical stores to get the drugs they want. For the others, the health center 3s and health center 2s, they get a health kit of a certain amount of drugs per every 2 months. Now, the challenge here is the following up to ensure that these medicines are not stolen. But
the following up is your job as a government.
You see, we have two governments.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you're a senior presidential advisor.
That's what I'm saying.
And in fact, even you said here sometimes, even you talk to him directly. The problem is also that leadership to say, I'm not going to compromise on this.
Yes, we're not going to compromise. That's why I'm saying we are now introducing digitalization to fight corruption. Because you're dealing with human beings, but if you're using a digital system, you can easily track the movement of those drugs. So the challenge is not lack of drugs, it's the poor management by the people concerned, either stealing them or not making use of them. I want to give you an example.
But the buck stops with the top executive.
Wait. I want to give you an example. The top executive has other leaders he works with. There is a Minister of Health. There's a lot of leaders at the Minister of Health who are supposed to do their job. So is anybody sleeping on their job? You don't expect the president to be down treating people in the hospital. There's a doctor who's supposed to do that. He's not a dispenser of medicine in the hospital. There's someone supposed to do that. Now, if the medicines have come, like take for instance, the referral hospitals, and we have about 16 of them in Uganda. Each one of them gets medicines only, worth 8.8 billion, 8.5 billion, around that, in a year. How do they get the drugs? The budget, as said, is at the medical stores. For the head of that, referral hospital has to request for medicines from national medical stores.
But
and they send
I hope you have taken a lot of time to explain the health center 4s and 3s.
Let me complete this. There's a time when I checked with one of the hospitals in Uganda, and the national medical stores was telling me that their budget has a lot of still had a lot of money, and financial was ending. Still had a lot of money, and the people in this hospital some of them were saying there are no drugs. So they are saying we have their drugs here, but they haven't requested for them. So the issue of leadership. That's why now when you make it digital, and somebody can monitor from Kampala and say, but you are saying you don't have these drugs, your budget is still intact. How come you haven't requested for them? Then you can now take individual action against the leadership of that institution.
What explains, okay, you have explained the issue of health center 4s and health center 3 and maybe some of those general hospitals. But Moses, majority of the people in Kampala, when they fall sick, yes, they may decide to go to a private facility. But these private facilities, even though it is a liberalized economy, and in some cases, health center 4s are not going to manage NCDs and all this kind of stuff. All of us, whether you are a corporate Ugandan, a member of parliament, or even a minister, we are in perpetual vulnerability. No wonder we see the car washing exercises going in and the fundraising online, because people cannot afford, Moses. It is too expensive that they would decide just to go to your village and wait for your fate.
Well, maybe the alternative...
Even just 1 week in a topmost hospital or even medium hospital in Kampala is not affordable for a majority of Ugandans, Moses.
Well, it will be a question. At one time we discussed the issue of health insurance. It's still under discussions. I think there was even a law passed by Parliament, but President Anita sent to it. The issue was, the challenge there was, how do you fund it? There are issues to correct within it. So what you are talking about will be handled by medical insurance. But I was saying that even if I go to medical insurance, a lot of things will be done better if we use the current drug budgets we have in the government hospitals. Because if you did a check between the government hospital and the private hospital, and you see how much, I've told you, like a referral hospital gets a budget for drugs of about 8.5 billion. Now you check any private hospital to a level of, and those drugs are not for sale in a government hospital. Check with a private hospital of similar level, about same level, if they ever spend about 8 billion on drugs in a year. So I think my view is that we have enough drugs. The challenge is on how they are managed.
Okay, Mr. Moses Byarhanga, hold on to your point because you're going to take a break. When we come back in our last segment of the discussion, let's look into the issue of human rights and allegations of wild human rights violations in Uganda. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amar. My guest tonight is Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Byarhanga. Moses, we are going to get into the campaign mode, full throttle, now that the the party flag bearers are there. And soon the nomination is going to take place, and then we get into the campaign. But experience and record how we see is that normally when we get into this, there's a lot of sometimes even death, destruction, tear gas, and killings. If 2020 is anything to go by, it was very scary. Are we likely to avoid this kind of chaos? Can't we have an election where human rights are not abused, where people can just walk and do what is expected of them without violence?
See, the first thing starts with our discipline. The political leaders, their discipline. You see, if you use the 2020 case, you see, we had COVID. There were international WHO rules and national rules to follow to avoid the spread. We couldn't suspend the presidential elections. That was a constitutional matter. And if you wanted to suspend, you needed a referendum, which is just an election. So we had to agree to hold an election in the middle of COVID. And some of the rules were no public rallies, have meetings where people do social distancing, use radios and TVs like this. And President Museveni, on his part, followed those rules to the letter. No public rally was addressed. Even people would stop on the way to stop his convoy. He would say, no, I'm not stopping. You will listen to the radio, I will be talking to you in the evening. I'm going for a meeting. And in those public meetings we would hold at regional level, everybody coming will be tested of COVID. And we used to have some cases, in some cases we would get positive cases and those people will not come. They'll be told not to come for the meeting and so forth. But some people chose not to follow those rules. And then the police came in. And then how they were handled, one now starts saying, oh, there was violence, there was ABCD.
People were shot, bullets on their heads in downtown Kampala, and big numbers died. But why I'm asking this question, Moses, is that because it was, if we could at least ensure that the ghost of 2020, November 2020 don't return to haunt us in this election.
It shouldn't come if we are disciplined. I don't think the police, whoever was sure, the security people just went anyhow, just shooting anyhow. You remember there was a riot.
But Moses, haven't you seen members of the security apparatus arrest young boys and supporters of the National Unity Platform, and sometimes even come back with this very, very gory images of torture?
You see, Kamara.
So I hear they have locked them in the basements and things like these, Moses. You should know that young people who have supported the opposition, their rights have been abused.
Don't confuse issues first. You raised the issue of 2020. I was explaining that. Mm-hmm. It was, you see, because Bob Wine was arrested somewhere in Busoga.
Luke, I think.
Because of not following those rules. So they said the disciplining of the political leaders must be disciplined to avoid unnecessary clash with the police. And then people started rioting in Kampala. And then the security forces, how they handled it. Now, the question of what you talk about, some of the deaths which happened, was a result of those riots. And some of the rioters throwing stones at policemen and so on and so forth. So this shouldn't happen. If the political leaders are well disciplined, there shouldn't be any confrontation with the police at any one moment. The police should be able to cover you to ensure that there is security for everybody attending your rallies. That should be the norm. But I don't want people, you see, there's this tendency that in the campaign time, everybody should be above the law, and when the police takes action, then you blame the police and not the other person.
If people were fighting in Kololo just the other day, throwing chairs at each other, if in your own primaries of NRM, Mr. Byarhanga, if examples of Zimbabwe, somebody was shot dead, in Mubenda and the Singiro, vehicles were set ablaze, in the internal contestation of power within NRM, why wouldn't we get scared when NRM now is going to meet people outside its own internal politics? Because you have shown that violence within your own system.
You shouldn't be scared. I said earlier that anybody who is violent, it doesn't matter if you're NRM or not, the police should deal with you. You tell me somebody was arrested, and the police, somebody and I was arrested by police, and then somebody said, you release that person. On the contrary, the president has come out in the open and told the police, and we criticized them and said, why don't you arrest those who are involved, are reported to have been violent?
Yeah, but the police, when it comes to contestation for positions of leadership, even in a constitutional and legal way, has shown to take, has taken sides. Recently in Ntungamo, you know, when Noop organized just a football match in a village, the police could not even allow people to play.
Well, you should invite here the Inspector General of Police, because you talk about institutions. There's an institution called the police. It is led by Inspector General of Police. My OB, Mr. Rebecca Kadaga, we were in the same school at the same time. He was ahead of me. He invited him here and give him those examples and say, why is this happening? The police is an institution.
So you are not aware that in many cases the opposition members have not been allowed to do their peaceful legal activities anywhere they want to be in Uganda? Every time they have moved, they have been stopped, Moses. You know that. Why can't you just allow them to exercise their right, their political right, as much as you do yours?
Their right should be exercised in a right way, also in a rightful manner. Because there are people who will tell you they want to organize a demonstration, a demonstration on Kampala Road, to walk from Kampala Road to State Parliament. And the police says, no, we are going to be overstretched, we don't allow this, because that action is going to inconvenience other road users and so forth. Somebody says, I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. Now you get into altercations between the police and the civilians. So sometimes it's provocation with the political leaders who do it deliberately. So it's a balance. Yes, the police have their role to play, but sometimes they also get provoked.
You should know that you have a poor human rights record.
No.
The case of Eddie Mutwe, a gentleman who's a bodyguard of the president of the National Unity Platform, arrested by state agencies. His picture comes out when he's tortured. He comes to court, he's clearly tortured. Sometimes his relatives and lawyers are not accessing him, you know. And I'm not just speaking that one example, Moses, because there are very many others.
Well, if you are people who have tortured the others, our law is very clear. And
sometimes senior army officers, you know, when somebody listens, somebody even brags about the act. You see, Moses, you know these things, Moses.
Patrick, our law is very clear on torture. If you torture and you're in the security forces, the president, I remember one time, like so many years ago, came out with a letter which was published in the press guiding the security forces against torture. And our laws on torture in such a way that if you are a security personnel and you torture a suspect, you're held personally responsible and accountable. Where unfortunate cases have happened, as you're mentioning, those should be followed up. That's why we have a Human Rights Commission, a very independent body. It has been following up a lot of cases. And where they find that the culprits, there are some culprits, they recommend action to be taken against them.
So as we try to conclude this, it was quite a very stiff competition in 2021 or 2020. This time around, as we go for this general election, what are your prospects?
What do you call stiff?
Well, you lost in Buganda, you lost in Busoga, so that was stiff. So it could be worse this time around.
But Busoga and Uganda are not the only parts of Uganda. We go on everywhere else.
So, but this time around,
Uganda has, if you categorize it under those the old tribal districts. There are 18 of them, the different sub-regions. And we lost in only 2, and one in the older 16. And then you call that too stiff? Surely. Kamara. You should be better than that. So, but even that notwithstanding, in Busoga, I think we lost Busoga with about 48,000 votes. You see, that was not so stiff, 48,000. We're going to recover that. In Uganda...
Are you sure?
I'm sure. I'm sure about it.
With what has just happened in SEC?
That notwithstanding.
You think Busoga is not drifting away?
Busoga cannot go away because Kadaga lost SEC position. Please. You should be more knowledgeable than that. That's nothing. This is a democracy. You cannot say somebody can't, your person can't win. Then you see, the rules of politics of the 1960s, where it was somebody who brings you a whole region. I remember that time it was like Bunyoro had the late Magezi, who was the UPC. It was the one who would bring UPC to Bunyoro. But NRM goes to the grassroots by itself. So you cannot be there and Biaruhanga, I'm the one who brings the NRM in this region. That would be overestimating yourself. So NRM reaches everywhere. At village.
I hope, you sound very, somebody who's very solid, if I could use the word very bullish, but you could be humbled in a few months.
No.
I hope you'll be able to,
I know my statistics.
Eat your humble pie.
I know my statistics very well. NRM is going to win the next election, not less with about 70% and above.
What?
70%, that's our target, and we're going to achieve it.
You know you're on record?
Yeah, I'm on record. I don't care. I'm on record, and I know it. Here in Uganda, you see, Bobi Wine got about 1.9 million votes. We got to about 1,005,000 votes in Uganda, the whole of Uganda. So we lost Uganda with about 900,000 votes. The 900,000 votes, 500,000 of that was within Kampala and Wakiso. The rest of Uganda outside Kampala and Wakiso, we lost it with 400,000 votes. That's very easy to recover, and I'm sure by now we have already recovered it. And besides, in the rest of the, for instance, we got 1 million within Uganda. We got 1.2 million votes in northern Uganda. We got 1.4 million votes in eastern Uganda, and we got 2.4 million votes.
Are those the actual votes you got?
In eastern Uganda. In eastern Uganda. I know it in my head.
Yeah, but so, you could also be saying you got that, but maybe that is not, you awarded yourself.
How?
Because allegations of bribery.
No, please come on.
People even go to court because of these things.
And what did court say? You can go to court, you can make any claim to court, but the court will prove you wrong or right. How many MPs do we have in parliament? And against any other? Some of the parties didn't have even a candidate in some of the places.
Because you make it hard for them even to reach those areas.
How? Like today, if nominations of parliamentary candidates are in September, next a few days, about 2 weeks or so from today. I think, about 3 weeks or thereabout. For September, I think they were extended. Well, anyway, between September and October, I don't remember the exact dates. I know one of the president is 23rd and 24th. But for the parliamentary is also it was put at 16th and 17th, but later I think extended, changed it. So you wait and see which parties will have candidates in each and every constituency of Uganda. NRM would have party candidates everywhere. Because
NRM is fused with the state.
Then why are they campaigning?
You know that. The RDCs, the GISOs, the PISOs, the military generals who are supposed to be public officials.
You're contradicting yourself. On one hand, you are saying it's going to be stiff. On one hand, you are saying...
No. Some of the methods we are using, Moses Biaruhanga, you know that the ground is not going to be leveled.
Kamara.
Because state public officials are fused with the NRM Party.
How come Nupu won in Uganda? Was there no state? And didn't win elsewhere? How come they didn't have candidates in Rupunjiri? They didn't have candidates in Koboko. They didn't have candidates in Karamoja, but they had candidates in Kalungu, had candidates in Mukono.
Mr. Moses Byarhanga, what's going to be your concluding remark tonight?
My concluding remark is that in the next election, NRM is going to win both parliamentary, presidential, and local government elections. At presidential, my prediction is that we shall win 70%.
Mr. Moses Byarhanga, senior presidential advisor there. Tonight, he's in a very bullish kind of mood, and he's more optimistic than ever before. It's your job to agree with him or disagree with him in a constitutional and legal way, and whoever is going to be in this race and those who are going to follow, there's no point to start fighting amongst yourselves. Just to go and vote for your person and go home and do what you're expected to do. Let us do this, Uganda, without getting into violence. Good night, and God bless Uganda.